Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. It's good to see you. As you know, I'm your chair, Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Rachel Carnack. The role of this committee is to scrutinise performance and take a closer look at topics of interest across the council services, making recommendations to Cabinet where necessary. This committee also deals with the call-in of Cabinet decisions and decides whether these decisions should be referred back to the decision maker to think again. Tonight we're looking at the theme of finance, specifically the financial outturn for 24-25. So that was the financial year ending March 2025, so not the current year that we're in. An invitation was sent to Councillor Mike Soles, Cabinet Member for Finance, to join us, but unfortunately he's on holiday, so he did send his apologies, and I know that everyone was asked if they had any questions that they could send those to him, and that he would do his best to answer. So I don't know if anyone's done that, and I think that invitation remains open. So if after this evening you have more questions that you want to ask, you can always email Mike. So just some housekeeping. There's no fire alarm planned for this evening. Should the alarm sound, please leave via the nearest available emergency exit. Two of the closest exits are through the glass door behind you to my left and through the double doors onto the riverside behind you. Please do not use the exit at the back to my right, as access is currently restricted by the works outside, as I'm sure you'll all have seen. And please meet in Tower House car park. Members of the public, we have one, are welcome to make their own recordings of the meeting using whatever non-disruptive methods they think are suitable. And I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being minuted, recorded, filmed and made available to view in live and archive form via the Council's website. If you are seated in the public gallery, it is possible that the cameras may capture your image. If you wish to avoid being filmed, it is recommended you make a member of staff aware who can direct you to where to sit. I think we're probably all okay on that this evening. The Westgate Garden gates on the riverside are locked, so members of the public must leave the Guildhall by the side exit behind the glass door. Apologies for absence. Pippa, we have a few.
We have apologies from Councillors Bland, Buckman, Franklin, Mackenzie and Worley.
And substitute members.
Councillor Mellish is present for Councillor Bland.
Okay, so we don't have many substitutions in mind. Right. Declarations of interest by members or officers. Do we have any declarations? Yes. Marie.
Just to declare, I'm a director on the Canenco board. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Just to declare the same, I'm a director on the Canenco board as well.
Okay. And anyone else? No. Okay. We don't have any public participation this evening. So first of all, we're turned to the minutes held on the 4th of June when we had the contract management update. We are receiving an update from Nikki Mills as item 7 this evening, but does anyone have any comments on the minutes of June the 4th? Or yes, Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, third time lucky. Thanks for your patience there, Chair. Yeah, I wanted to comment, as I had already mentioned to you, that actually I'm not particularly happy with the minutes. I feel that if you read them as someone who didn't listen to the meeting, you would have thought that some of the points that we raised and discussed on the evening had been left in a very different place from where I feel they were left. You'll know, Chair, because we've both been councillor for 6.5 years, I've never challenged minutes before, but I'm not happy with these. So I'll give you an example. There's a point in there that says that street cleaning and waste collection services are improving, but all the data we had discussed at Scrutiny in that meeting had showed that waste collection, bin collection rates essentially are falling for recycled and for general, and the number of green subscriptions was dropping, and on street cleaning was showing the quality of the work as measured by the inspections had gone down. So I felt like the data we had discussed very clearly showed that those Kanenko services were dropping in quality, and yet the minutes say everything's getting better. And I appreciate you have differences of opinions with people all the time in life, including in a council. But I felt that that just wasn't representative of what we discussed. So I just ask you to. I appreciate we've talked about this and you try to do what you can, but I'll not be voting for the minutes if there is going to be a vote. Or just mark down that I'm not happy that they're a fair reflection of the whole discussion anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Can we do that then? Yeah, thank you. Does anyone else have any comments on them? No. Yes, Marie.
Just to make a general statement, the minutes are not sort of a verbatim record, and obviously the live recording of the meeting is available. But I think, for the purpose of the minutes, your objections can be recorded.
Yes, so what we'll do is we can take general assent and your comments will be noted, Councillor Watkins, and then, as Marie says, it is recorded. So it's recorded from June the 4th and it's recorded tonight as well. So yeah, there were quite a few amendments made to these minutes to try to make them more reflective, but I think I think you have a good point there, and we will hear. We've got the verbal update this evening anyway, so we'll hear more later on that. Apart from Councillor Watkins, is everyone okay with the minutes from June the 4th? Oh, Councillor Paget.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to say that I would echo the same point as Councillor Watkins on that particular point that he mentioned. Okay, that's fine. So is everyone else okay with the minutes? Agreed. Okay. Yes, that's for the 4th. Yeah. And then for the 25th of June, that was when we had the Community Safety Partnership. Do we agree those minutes by general assent? Yes, that's all agreed. So, okay, so thank you. So it's just the June 4th, if you can make a note, Councillor Paget and Councillor Watkins. Thank you very much. Right, okay, thank you everyone for that. We now move to the report for this evening, item 6, which is the report of the Director of Finance and Procurement, and Nikki Mills, who's Director of Finance and Procurement, is going to give us a presentation, and also oh, sorry, I'm losing my place. Oh, sorry, I've forgotten. Cheryl Ireland as well, sorry. Head of Finance is here. Sorry, Cheryl. Struggling to remember your name. I was only just introduced to you. So it just slipped my mind. But yeah, thank you very much. So, Nikki, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to weigh everybody's expectations, it's not a presentation, it's just an introduction, just in case anybody was expecting more. I think I was supposed to do a presentation actually, and that's completely, so my apologies, sorry. I've completely missed that one. Sorry, yeah, it is a new term. Can I have that excuse? So you've got the outturn report in front of you. It was a difficult year again. I don't think we ever seem to get away from it being a difficult financial year. However, for the general fund overall, you will see at the bottom of the table on appendix that there was a small underspend compared to budget. Is it £18,000? That's good remembering. So that's a very good outturn, again, for difficult year. You can see throughout the table there is a lot of different variances across the board, and they're detailed in the report with all of the reasons for them. Just to bring to your attention a couple of the main variances, the bigger ones, that they relate to, there's homelessness, which is quite a big overspend, and on temporary accommodation. We're not alone in that across from Kent, from my awareness. However, from all the various schemes that we've done over the years, and to try and manage TA spend and buying properties and things like that, that this could have been a lot worse. So this is the first year that we've had that sort of significant overspend within that budget line. So without those things in place, it could have been a lot larger, and it is for some of our neighbours as well. There's another high overspend relating to housing benefits, which is there, it's over £1 million. And in previous years, this would generally be on par to budget. However, as we are just the administrative authority on behalf of DWP for housing benefits, we don't have that much control in what happens here. However, the subsidy that we receive from government doesn't cover the full housing benefit payments that we have to pay out, including some supported housing. There's been an increase in demand in this, and also the subsidy doesn't cover the full cost of the benefit. So this has resulted in this overspend. Again, this is something across the board that all authorities are seeing this sort of increase, and something that we are looking into to see what we can do to bring this down. And we're setting up a group so that we can understand fully exactly the issues around this, but also what can we do that's within our control to reduce this overspend. There are also some small underspends across many different services, mostly relating to variances on either small budgets or vacancies, savings that are temporary. And we're fortunate that those cover some of these big overspends. So we need to make sure we can address those in this year and coming years, so that as we fill vacancies, that saving isn't there to cover it. This year we also had the additional national insurance to contend with that wasn't fully funded, the increase in that, but as everybody did as well. And then just drawing to capital, there are a few small overspends, but an approximately 9 million carrying forward for the existing projects from 24-25 going into 25-26, and that's just a timing issue, which includes the match funding for LUF and building maintenance are the two main areas. And then the HRA has had a good year, better year for income than was budgeted. And as explained in the report, part of that was because when we set the budget, we thought there was a 51-week year. So therefore, the income that we are getting from rents was multiplied by 51 weeks. For that financial year, it turned out it was 53 weeks. So there was an extra 2 weeks worth of income in that year accounted for. So there's additional income, and then some of the costs have also, they've been managed down as well. So that it's been a good year for the HRA. And also just to note that there are some overspends mentioned across the board that they've either been included already in the 25-26 budget, so hopefully it was a one-off, or we've addressed it in the current year's budget, or we'll need to feed it into the 26-27 budget process as if they're ongoing. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Are there any questions for Nikki? Yes, Councillor Mayor.
Just a simple one, actually. I must admit, I can't recall. When is the LHA rates revised? I mean, I'm always going to have this problem of doing catch-up, you know, until the next time that they're revised.
They were recently revised, but the issue is with supported accommodation, which is not affected by LHA rates. So where there is supported accommodation where extra services are provided, the full cost of that can't be recouped from DWP. So that's where the gap is.
Chair. I understand that, but it says that the calculations were based on the 2020 rates and they're reviewed then. So my question still stands. We're always going to be in that position for how long? Until next time the rates are. When do you expect the rates to be reviewed?
There is never a timescale. It's never done every 3 years, every 5 years. It's done on a different basis. And the LHA rates actually affect sort of TA spend and the amount that we're recouping for that. So the housing benefit and the supported accommodation spend is a separate issue. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you. Yes, I've already explained to Nikki Mills that it isn't my strong point, so I might have some really stupid questions. One is the self-financing debt. This stop charging loan repayments to the HRA, and then this sort of 7 million, which seems to sort of appear. And I kind of get that you've kind of changed where you're paying the interest from. I think that's what it means. It looks as though you've then got an extra 7 million going into the HRA reserves. I don't know whether that's true. And if that is true, is that something you can do something with? Is that like a sort of bonus windfall that we can do something with? Or is it just the way money disappears in a whole budgeting system? I also just wanted to just say there's several points, talking about underspends and overspends, etc. Several points where it says that budgets are going to be reprofiled or realigned for next year. Is that fairly normal, or is that indicating that there are some weaknesses in some parts of the budgeting, in some departments' budgeting? What else did I have? On the capital outturn paper, have we got onto that one? Have we done that one as well? Yeah, we have, good. So it looks as though about half the works that were planned on the capital were not carried out this year. And again, that just seems to me, is that normal? It seems to me quite an extreme that £9 million worth of repairs or whatever it was, capital works have not been carried out in the year that were planned. Why is that? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Some excellent questions there. No question is a stupid question. I love questions, especially if I know the answers to them as well. So, the HRA self-financing debt, it was something that we had advice from one of our Treasury advisors, and we have been looking into it. We changed the accounting for it in 24-25 and restated 23-24. However, it still needs to be audited. So I'm just very cautious about it because it's something that is very simple and also seems very complicated at the same time in my finance world anyway, that we've taken the advice, we've changed the accounts, and we will work it through with the auditors to make sure that is signed off by them, but that won't be till January. So it's a cautious, yes, your understanding is correct, but we'll wait and see that to make sure that it goes through auditors. And other authorities have also had this similar situation because the regulations changed after the self-financing debt came in and how we could account for it. And so, yeah, we'll hold on to that one and see if it passes through, which I'm hopeful it will, because otherwise we wouldn't have spent all the time and working through it. So, overs and underspends of budgets, yes, that is normal, and it's because we do the budget so early on, and we don't zero base every single budget line. You take the last year's budget and adjustments that they might need, whether it's growth for inflation or savings that we have put through. but they're always an estimate at a point in time, and it's quite early on. We're just about doing it now for 26, 27. So by the time we get into 26, 27 and things start happening and the actuals are being spent, income's coming in, sometimes you just need to realign budgets within a service because the assumptions from 12 months ago, the situation's changed, the inflation's changed, and so it's managing. All budget managers have authority to manage their own budgets within their remit and their service area. So yeah, sometimes it's very common to move things around just to tidy it up because of what's actually happening compared to what we budgeted for and what we thought was happening. And capital, it's not a very good question. It's just it's the timing of there were big projects. We had Project Relo, we had Kingsmead finishing, we had building maintenance and some toilet refurb, and there's quite a few budget lines that either the timing just tips over into the next year, and again, we're estimating the timing as well as the amount when we're doing capital programmes, and sometimes the timing just delays a bit and it falls into the next year, so we roll over that budget. I'm pretty sure the projects have all finished. Well, Project Relo and Kingsmead's opened and Project Relo's opened, so those big projects have completed, and also where we've got building maintenance budgets and things that are budgets that are ongoing. Again, you know what you need to do with a big long list of things. It's whether or not you can get those in place to fulfil those building maintenance needs. So again, the budget just rolls over, but the need rolls over as well. So it is normal, and often it's just timing, and it might be it gets spent in April, May in the next year rather than the whole of the year. But we have to roll over the budget so that it's available there to spend.
Thank you. Councillor Turnbull, did you have a further comment?
Yeah, I would say thank you. Thank you, that does help. There was just one other thing I just wanted to mention, but it's not really a question, but I think it's just, I was looking at the underspend on enforcement and I was quite disappointed to see how large that was, because I feel that enforcement is something that we're always saying is really stretched, and we really want it. We want more enforcement. We want, we've got plenty of things in place that we could enforce, and it was quite frustrating to see that was such a big underspend, but I don't think that's something that, Nick would be able to answer on, so thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you. I agree with you on that. And I just wanted to ask on that as well, where there were these underspends, particularly on the HRA on building internal fit outs, energy saving measures and the refurbishment programmes. Do we know if those have now caught up this year? Because, yeah, some of those were just because of failures by contractors. So have we actually caught up on those now?
Thank you, Chair. I think with the HRA and some of the capital works, a massive chunk of that is Windsor House. We're doing the roof, we're doing the external wall installations, and we need to do that together as one package. The hold up, particularly with Windsor House, has been the building safety regulator signing this off. And because nationally there are so many high-rise properties with external wall installations that need to be replaced, they've got a massive backlog. So the delay has not been because of managing the contract or what we've been doing. We're waiting for sign-off and confirmation that project is going to happen. With planned works, we come up every year with a planned programme. We're having a significant issue with no access in a lot of our housing stock, and this obviously impacts on delivery of programmes. But what we do is take a flexible approach. So if we're doing windows and doors and a property becomes void, or we do an inspection and find that work needs to be done, we've got the flexibility to add properties into existing contracts. So you might remember with with some of the housing performance. We actually do more windows, doors, replacements as the year goes on to compensate for things that haven't happened. So it's a flexible and agile programme.
Thank you. And Councillor Mellish,
A touch of minutiae by comparison, I'm afraid. It's just on the Marlow Theatre and the overspend of 102,000 relating to insurance and external legal costs. I mean, obviously there's always ongoing legal insurance issues with establishment like that, but was it a particular event that required this overspend that we should perhaps be aware of, and hopefully it's not reoccurring as a one-off?
Thank you, Chair. It's not a reoccurring. It relates to the previous contract build, so it has come to an end. So it's not an ongoing thing for the legal costs, and the insurance is, the insurance keeps going up as well as the costs. But
thank you. And Councillor Watkins.
Thanks, Chair. Am I right to speak twice, once just on the generality and then once on the specific questions relating to Kanenko? Is that all right? You can break me up if you like. I'm sure everyone else would appreciate that as well. So I'll speak on the general points just to start with, and there's a question sort of embedded. So I absolutely get the point that budget is stressed and overall it's come in there or thereabouts. But I think one of the opening lines in the report said the actual use of reserves to balance the budget was as per the budget allocated. So I think it was a couple £100,000 of reserves we plan to use to balance the budget. But then it says further contributions for one-off expenditure from reserves were required, resulting in a net contribution for the budget stabilisation reserve. I think that was another couple of £100,000, if I remember. But to me, that means, the statement, the actual use of reserves to balance the budget was as per the budget allocated, didn't seem right to me, because we're saying, but then we needed some more reserves. We just took it out of another reserve pot, put it into the main reserve. Do you see what I mean? The language there was somewhat confusing, but I believe the position is overall that we did spend £200,000 more of our reserve than we planned. And then just my other comments, which are more just sort of comments. Obviously you're talking through some projects which we spent money on in the past and actually have been subject of some sort of controversy and debate. But I mean, I was pleased to see that Whitefriars, which is a very strategic asset for this council, is performing well. And also another similar project, Station Road West multi-car park, sounds like that is performing as well also. These are quite critical to the finances of our council, so I think that's to be welcome. My favourite theme of Surrey Park and Ride, I'm not able to comment on because we'd aggregated the figures into the total Park and Ride, but it seems like that overall is doing okay, which is nice. But we'll get into the detail of Surrey again when it's next reported back to us. So yeah, definitely a few wins within there. But if you just let me know on the reserves, that would be great.
thank you, Chair. Yes, good spot. And it was something I also read and sort of questioned myself on my own report afterwards. But it's because the budget for balancing, the contribution from reserve for balancing the budget is one thing. The additional taken from reserves were one-off and specific things, like the cyber event was, I think, about 100-ish thousand. It was one-off. That's never going to, touch wood, spend required again, and there is no budget for that in there, so that's the only place that it can come from. So it's that they are specific one-offs that were out of our control, not in any planned thing. And I think I get the language nuance, but that's the difference.
Just to follow up, because that's a very helpful explanation. So the budget stabilisation reserve is almost like the contingency. It's for sort of unforeseen things that happen that needed to stabilise the budget. Does it get a kind of top up each year? Because like when you're doing any sort of project or running an organisation with significant costs, you quite often have a kind of contingency, wouldn't you, of a pot of money for unforeseen. So I suppose what I'm asking is that in our world of local government finance. Is that what the budget stabilisation reserve is?
Oh, we don't have contingencies. I don't like the word contingency. We set up the budget stabilisation reserve in COVID because there was so much fluctuation and unknown and all of those things that everybody remembers. And we had to do an emergency budget and everything was just up in the air. So that it was set up for that. And since then, the financial position hasn't been able to come back to a balanced budget without taking from reserves, as we've got, as you're all aware. It's a minimal amount, but without doing something drastic. So that's the only reason it's there for. It's not there as a contingency or because it's finite. It can only be used once, as you will be aware. So no, it's not a contingency. That would depend on the outturn for the year. We might be able to prop it up by £18,000 this year, but it depends on everything throughout the year. But we've taken more than £18,000, but it's not budgeted to be topped up, and that's where the medium-term financial plan would come into it for the longer-term view of how we budget going forward.
Thank you. And Councillor Dixie.
Thank you. I'd like to come back to the question about the Marlow. That relates to a fault with the original developer going back over 20 years. And it's taken us 20 years to bloody well sort it out. The basement should have been tanked. I brought this up at the working group several times. It's my area of expertise, one of my areas, and they didn't go ahead with that. And it's taken them 20 years to sort this out because the basement floods where they store kit. Yeah, it's not a very good reflection, I'm afraid, on this council. In fact, it's a bloody awful reflection on this council, to put it bluntly.
Thank you, Councillor Dixie. Yes, it's cost us a huge amount of money and is an ongoing liability, isn't it? So, yeah. Thank you, Councillor Dixie. Councillor Warrener, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, as a point of clarification, as a new councillor, can I just get an explanation as to what that cost is? Is that cost you were talking about the insurance cost of the basement of the Marlow if it floods, if I'm following you correctly, or is that the legal costs of pursuing the original developer to fix the flooding basement in the Marlow? Because if it's the insurance, that would seem to be an ongoing cost that may increase. If it's pursuing the developer to rectify that problem, that would seem to be a cost that has or will conclude at some point and then may have a knock-on effect to the insurance, which would reduce. Sorry, I'm new to this, so don't know the history. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The insurance is the only cost that will be ongoing. The legal costs have now stopped. So, but the part of that overspend in there is insurance, and actually it shouldn't be ongoing. We should be recharging the Marlows for that. So that's something that we will be picking up.
Thank you. And do we have any other questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Paget.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back to temporary accommodation, obviously that's something he referenced as a large increase that we've seen. Just from my perspective of clarification, when that does occur, where does that sort of additional money come from? Is that from reserves or is that budgeted for? Obviously, that's quite an increase in that we've had. And also, you mentioned the kind of plan to reduce that and deal with that. I just wondered if you could go into any more detail about what that would involve at all. Thank you.
You may recall at the 4th of June meeting, we had a couple of big chunky items. So one of them was Kanenko, which took a massive part of the meeting. The second report was the theme of housing. and it focused on temporary accommodation. So that report went into all the data around the number of approaches and the measures that we were taking to control this. And it's a raft of measures from having a social lettings agency to help people into the private rented sector. We've been acquiring new stock. Cabinet gave us permission to buy another 20 properties for temporary accommodation earlier this year. So if we've got our own temporary accommodation, we've already got some in HRA stock, then that addresses the issue of the local housing allowance rate not meeting the actual rent that's being charged. It is about making sure that we are working with people earlier. So it's about early intervention, trying to stop people becoming homeless, and the cost of that has to their quality of life, as well as the cost to the budget in providing temporary accommodation. So if you want to go back over some of the housing stuff from the 4th of June, I'm more than happy to go through that. And yeah, I mean, we've got a statutory duty to provide temporary accommodation, and that comes from the general fund.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Yeah. And I think as we know, this is, as Nikki has said, this is a huge pressure on our budget. And I'm guessing this year again is going to be a huge pressure on our budget. And next year, potentially, not just us, but many councils. And it is something, as Councillor Mellish said about the gap in these rates, that we have to be hopeful that government might address it sometime. But yeah, it is a real difficulty for us, and it is something that our reserves end up being used on. Councillor Watkins, did you want to come back?
Yes, so I wanted to raise the questions which I've already submitted by email on Kanenko. And Chair, as you know, there's 5 of them which I provided to Finance Manager a few days ago. Because people might be listening to this on the online, do you want me to quickly summarise those questions?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all right. And this is my last contribution on this topic, you'll be pleased to hear. But, it's really important because obviously I have concerns about the governance of Kanenko and I've voiced them before at Scrutiny. And I suppose these questions are financial ones, but maybe, could be linking to the fact that we don't have the governance that I think would reflect best practice for the arrangement, and thus things are I think, more likely to be going awry. So the first couple of questions were just about the outturn figure for street cleaning expense. So in this budget report, it's shown as £3.279 million for last year, but that is more than we had in an email exchange between the committee and finance director a month or 2 ago. So I was kind of questioning that. Why have we got 2 different numbers for street cleaning expense? Then in terms of what that expense is and the build up over the last 3 years, I was curious as to the pattern of inflationary uplifts we given to staff. So in some years we had given one, and then in 1 year, none. And then in the final year, 23-24, a really high one, I estimated it's probably more than 10% inflation increase, which I'd be surprised about. So is there something in that data we're not understanding? I was questioning why we're building back into our core street cleaning budget the synergy saving that we used to have under Serco. To my mind, when we bring grounds maintenance and street cleaning together, that does create an efficiency, because clearly a worker who is doing one of those tasks in a part of the district can quickly do another one on the same kind of plot of land, if you like. And so when we have situations where two different organisations are doing those tasks, it's inefficient because they won't multitask, they'll just stick to what they do. So I understand on the Serco days we had that synergy, and that was basically good for taxpayers. It was worth, what was it, £360,000, and it meant that Serco could deliver, by delivering both those contracts, could essentially do the same job, but for £360,000 less. When we brought in Kanenko, because we did it staged, obviously we broke that synergy for a little bit because we just started with the waste contract going in-house to Kanenko. But then we recreated the synergy when we bought the other services, ground maintenance and street cleaning in-house with Kanenko. And to my mind, when we brought that back in, it meant the taxpayer should get £360,000 of benefit again. But in this budget, we've actually increased the budget when that synergy impact came through, looking at the note we were given. So I appreciate a comment on that. And final one, more of a straightforward one, is just why did street cleaning income fall by 80% last year?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your questions. If I remember all of the first question was about why was it a different number in the outturn report to the figure that I reported in the email when on that question that came to scrutiny before. That's because the question that was raised at scrutiny before was on the budgets, and this is the outturn, so this is the actuals. So that's the only difference, that we are talking budgets and actuals. We're not looking at the same thing, really. Also, within this outturn report, there is includes extra things that the council does for street cleansing, which you wouldn't have picked up on because you just see that one line, but it does include dog kenneling, fly tipping and FPNs, so which all relate to street cleansing, which is why it's under that one line, but it's not just the Kanenko contract. It's just it's another element that is not part of the Kanenko contract. So, and then the next one was, you talked about the synergy or the saving. I don't think I referred to a synergy or saving, and I think we might be misunderstanding the 359,000 that I detailed in that table. When grounds maintenance came in from Serco, there was an element of some of the people that were classed as grounds maintenance, but when it all came into Kanenko, actually it turned out they were really doing street cleansing work, so they were just moved. So if you look, that's why it looks like street cleansing has gone up. But if you look at grounds maintenance, that's also gone down by 359, because you're just looking at that one element. It makes it look like it's increased. So it's not we haven't lost any of the synergy, but I also didn't refer to synergy. So I'm not sure where that came from, but it was just that it moved from when they were reviewing and doing that zero-based budgeting that they did in the year 3 or whenever it was that in that table. That's what they were looking at and allocated that team, or whoever it was, I don't know in detail, but that they should be under the street cleansing allocation. And then your last question about the income line for street cleansing, which is a great question, because when I looked into it, that it's just relates solely on FPNs, which is managed through NES contract. However, when we looked into this, it has been accounted for as the net income on that income line. So you see the expenditure and the income in our outturn report. When this has been allocated and accounted for, the costs had been taken off in the allocation. So actually the actual gross income that should be showing on that line is 142,000, and then there would be costs increased in the expenditure line, and then VAT as well that would come out of it. However, how it's been allocated was just the net cost, the net income, sorry, to the council, which is still the net position. That hasn't changed. It's just normally we would separate them out and you would see the gross income. We've got an opportunity to amend that, and we will change that and make sure that it's corrected for 25, 26. And if we can, in the outturn while the audit is going on, we'll amend that as well for that. Oh, thank you for spotting that one.
No, the outstanding question was in relation to the inflationary increases that you listed in that email.
Thank you. So the inflationary interest in percentages that I am talking about in that email, they're the increases to us as a council. So where it's changed year on year. And I think you asked if it was an error, and it wasn't an error. That we did not give an increase to Canenco in that year because they were zero basing and they were reviewing everything and doing things in detail of what they needed. And for that financial year, there wasn't a need. They were within their existing budget remit. So that might also be, I don't know the detail of that because I don't work for Canenco, but that's why the next year may look slightly higher, is because they're reviewing their need for the whole budget, including fuel inflation, including pay inflation and everything that then is coming. They may have had vacancies, I don't know. So, but what I'm looking at is what the council is contributing and what increase in inflation we are paying to them, not the details of what they need for their pay. It's not a linear process in that respect. They will look at what they need as a whole, and then they will come to the council for the difference. Thank you.
I mean, if I can come back on that point. I mean, it is, you know, we all got this email, right, showing the differences in the street cleaning costs, and it does in that final year split out how much we gave Canenco specifically for staff inflation and how much specifically for vehicle cost increase and how much for fuel increase, etc. I appreciate it hasn't in the previous year, but in that last year, it does give that breakdown. I thought you were saying you just one number to Canenco, one increase for everything.
No, if we don't need to give them any growth, which I don't think we did in that 1 year that you're questioning, then I don't have a breakdown of what they paid for their pay awards and all of that. But it's only I was able to look at what we gave from that year, going through why the differences for the council, and then be able to break down between 23, 24 and 24, 25 increase of what that was made up of. But when there wasn't an increase to the council, that's what I haven't got that breakdown, because I wouldn't.
I mean, I think my concern would be in those 3 years we're talking about, we are all you're able to get, and you know, it's you're just interpreting the data in our accounting system. You've had to pull out 3 different things. One is in the first year, you can only call it inflation, which is, I guess, everything by way of an increase for Canenco, but one figure. Could have been staff, could have been fuel, could have been vehicles. The next year, we don't know what the inflation amount was because we did a zero-based assessment, which reduced how much we were spending full stop with Canenco, and then we didn't. What probably would have been better is to have separately, but embedded within that, what was the inflationary increase, so that we could see that, but we haven't got that at all. And then in the third year, we've got the breakdown of multiple categories of inflation, which is the best way of doing it, by the way, because then we can see as councillors, well, we spent, it was actually quite a lot more, we spent £600,000 more on Canenco this year, and we're always thinking, did we get good value for that? Did our residents get good value for that? And we spent 200,000 on salary and 190 on seasonal staff and 80 on. So you get my point. In each of the 3 years, we've got a very different way of measuring what the increase in that contract was, with different level of visibility, ranging from none to quite a lot. And I wonder if we can be, I appreciate you probably need to speak to Canenco, but can we get that level of consistency? Do you think that's a reasonable request?
Thank you, Chair. I think because that question was relating to why has the budget changed since that 2020 till now? Why has it increased? So that's the answer that I was able to give and break it down to this. These are the reasons why it's increased. It wasn't about within the contract and what the different inflationary rates are and what we're paying. And I think that's an element that is probably for the company's advisory committee to go into that, because they're the ones that will be reviewing and challenging and checking all of the governance and the financials and the business plan and everything. So I think that's where that information would go and be able to be challenged directly with Kanenko as well. But I was answering the question that was put forward, and that's the information, that's the answer.
Is that okay, Councillor Watkins, because you are on that committee, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm fine to do that, because I think that does need tidying up. I just, unfortunately, I do just need to come back on a couple of the other points just to wrap this up. One of the points about the synergy, where did that come from? The reason I thought the £359,000 was synergy was because it references in your email that it was to do with Serco staff, and that was the same amount of synergy that we had under the Serco contract. So I put 1 and 1 together. Possibly I've made 3, but you can see why I did it, because it's a coincidence. It's the same amount, but all I can do is kind of try and revisit my notes on that one. If it is just a pure coincidence, then fair enough. You've explained. So thank you. And I think the final thing, and then everyone would probably be interested to know, street clean income. I appreciate you saying that wasn't clearly presented in the report. You're going to make that change, and that for the future, and that's great. But actually, do you know what it did go down by, or did it? Did the income actually go up last year for those fixed penalty notices?
Off the top of my head, I know it did. It was reduced, and that I think that's. I can't remember. It was less than. It was between 150 and 200,000 off the top of my head the previous year, but because when I was looking at this, I was looking to see what it normally was. So it has reduced, but that's also a good thing in the sense that we're not issuing as many fines. People aren't dropping litter as much to be, so that it's working. The point of the FBNs. So you would expect it to be going down over the time, because people will learn and hear from their experiences. But yeah, it has gone down, and we will correct that to 142,000 is what that number should say.
Is that okay? Okay, thank you very much, Nikki, and thank you, Councillor Watkins. Is there any final questions or comments? I just wanted to ask you, Nikki, there's been some articles in the press recently again about the audit. Can you give us an update on, from this outturn, where we are with the audit at the moment, please?
Yes, the auditors, we published our statement of accounts, and the auditors are due to start beginning of October all the way through till December, and they will present to Audit Committee in January.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And then the only final comment I wanted to make was I think one of the things that always Councillor Turnbull has commented on it is the underspends on staffing. That is always something that leaps out from the outturn, and those sort of gaps then in service. And I just wanted to say, we'll come to it later, but in November we will have the annual workforce report, so we'll be able to look more, Councillor Turnbull, at where there is that understaffing and those sort of unintended savings are being made. We'll be able to drill down a lot more in that in November, if that's okay. Okay, thank you. All right, well, if everyone's okay with that, and as I say, I know Councillor Sol is quite happy to take more questions that he'll reply to when he's back from his holiday. But in the meantime, if everyone's all right with that, do it. Yep. Okay. Yes. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much, Pippa. If you want to notice, that's all noted and fine. Yeah. Thank you very much. So I'd like to thank
Nikki very much for that, and also Cheryl for being here. And now, Nikki, item 7 we come on to, and it's more Kanenko. So we have the contracts management update now from the Director of Finance and Procurement in response to some of the questions that were raised at that June 4th meeting. So thank you very much, Nikki.
Thank you, Chair. So the numbers that we've already discussed, that was one of the questions. The main question that was raised was about the contract. And I've got quite a short update on that it is completed and it is with legal to be sealed and signed and the things that they do. So all stops have been pulled out and Sarah has worked extremely hard along with others and legal and people involved that, yeah, it's all complete. I'm pleased to say. The other thing that was raised was about resources, and that will go through in the normal Star Chamber process. So unless there was any other questions that I've missed that we haven't already covered, I think that was the update.
Yeah, thank you. I think we've covered most already through the outturn and the earlier comments. So is the contract with legal, or is it completely signed off, or does it have a process now to go through legal? And
I think it's just the legal have been involved, and I think it's just the final signing and sealing. And
do we know how long that might take? Is it likely to be ready to go to Cabinet in November, when I think they'll look at our minutes and what we reported from that June 4th meeting? I think that's Cabinet in November, isn't it, Maria? I think, is it? Coming up, isn't it?
Yeah, the contract will not go to Cabinet to be readopted.
It would be done.
That it will be done by then.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean
No.
to cause confusion.
No.
No, I didn't expect Cabinet
No,
to.
no.
It was more that it was, yes, that it was an important thing that we raised at scrutiny,
Yeah.
and that when everything from scrutiny, the minutes and our discussion goes to Cabinet, that will be something that can be ticked.
Yes.
Am I right in saying that?
it's imminent is the word, that it is being sealed and signed.
That's very good news. Councillor Watkins.
So that is very good news. So please thank Sarah and everyone else who worked on giving that the priority it deserved. And just to check then, will we as councillors see that final contract? And I think the reason I'm quite interested to do so is that particularly in the schedules, that's where we specify all the really important stuff that residents ask us all the time, like, how often, the toilets get cleaned and how do you monitor that, and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That bit of detail is that, I know that will be, I'm sure that will be in the contract, but do we get to see that? And how is that routed? If it doesn't go through Cabinet, what's the governance for that being kind of signed off?
Just to ask on the back of that, presumably the KPIs can then be built from the contract, can they? Or so that the monitoring that we do, where we've been in this area where it's been quite difficult to monitor this contract, not only at scrutiny, but I think also at the Cabinet Committee. Will that help with this, Nikki? So yes, going back to Councillor Watkins, how will we as councillors be able to use this contract to monitor Kanenko's performance?
Yeah, I think that there's two routes. First of all, your scrutiny will be seeing the performance reports and everything for the next meeting, so there will be elements in there. And then the other side is the company's advisory committee. That's the route for the performance and the financials. Marie, did you want to?
So at the minute, there is a review of all corporate KPIs that's been undertaken, linked to the new corporate plan. There's obviously service performance indicators that support those KPIs, which contract management through Nikki's team will monitor the performance of Kanenko. It's been agreed that the Canenco performance goes through to the company's advisory committee, as was requested at the last meeting. So there will be oversight of that. And the KPIs reflect what's in the specification. So the specification and the contract doesn't come in front of councillors, but the KPIs are built on the performance indicators within the specification.
Thank you. Councillor Mellish.
So just to clarify your point, Chair, so therefore the KPIs will come to council, will come to cabinet, and the KPIs for Canenco, and not just the overall budgeting KPIs. Yeah, so very specific to the company's operation.
So the corporate plan key performance indicators are down for the November meeting of scrutiny. Then the contract KPIs are reported to Cabinet on a 6-monthly basis, and there will also then be detailed reports to the company's advisory committee around the corporate health of the company, the business plan and the performance. Yeah.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Well, I think that sounds like a much better arrangement and a much better level of governance than we've had thus far. Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, that will be much better governance, because essentially we've been waiting 2.5 years for the new corporate plan, and this is the biggest service by spend, and we haven't had those KPIs, from Canenco to sort of monitoring that. So I think that is going to be very welcome. I would like to think that all the members of the company advisory committee will see the contract. Is there some sensitivity about just making it all available to the councillors on that committee? Well, maybe you want to wait for the lawyers to sign it off, but then make it available.
We'll take that away. However, if you look at the normal arrangements, the council has got hundreds of contracts. If you take the HRA and the repairs contract, the contract of that size and nature, it wouldn't normally come before councillors. I'll take it away, but normally the actual detail of the contract isn't passed through any governance process. It's a legal arrangement between the council and the provider.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Turnbull.
Yeah, I'm just coming back on that because I'm on that advisory committee as well, and I think obviously this is a bit of a special case. I mean, that's specifically what that committee is for, is to monitor that contract and make sure that we're getting the performance that we expect from that. So obviously we wouldn't expect to see it when it's going through the process of, but of being ratified and signed, etc. But we do. I mean, what's been really frustrating in the past is that we haven't had KPIs and we haven't been able to, we're told that Canenco were monitoring their own performance and that we just had to take it as read, whereas obviously people were there who had more information that they got through FOI, which suggested things weren't so good. So I think we just want to be reassured that we are going to be able to do that level of scrutiny and actually perform that role that we understand that committee is for.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think, you can be reassured you will have all the information that you will need to do your scrutiny role and the company advisory committee role. But you don't need all of the legalese, the whole however many hundreds of pages of a document it is. You need the key information that you need, the KPIs, and all of that will come through whichever route what we've been talking about. So I think you can be reassured you will get all of that, whether it's through scrutiny or company's advisory committee.
Thank you, Chair. And just to be clear, there hasn't been no reporting of KPIs or performance of Canenco. Previous to the change with scrutiny, you were receiving 6-monthly reports on Canenco and performance. Those reports on performance have gone through to Cabinet, with the change in the themes and the approach that this committee wanted to take. So just to be very clear, there has been performance monitoring on Kanenko. It came to this committee and then it's been routed to Cabinet because of the change in this committee. But the new addition is that Company Advisory Committee will also see that performance data as part of that balanced scorecard for the corporate health of the organisation.
Thanks, Marie. Thanks.
Yeah, I think Councillor Turnbull was referring to the Cabinet Advisory Committee seeing this data rather than scrutiny. And as we know, scrutiny has changed because the corporate plan changed and it wasn't as it was. So, Councillor Forrester.
Thank you, Chair. It's on the same theme. I don't want to see the whole contract. I don't want to spend another evening going through a contract. But it may be really helpful if the schedules that had those specifications could be extracted and shared to put people's minds at ease. And also, I think it may be helpful if when the contract is sealed and the sealing process has concluded, if that could be confirmed to councillors so everyone knows that that is now in force. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Forrester. I think those are really good points. And Councillor Mellish, did you? Oh, you're okay. Okay, so then just to summarise, thank you very much for that update. It's very, very welcome news. I don't think any of us thought it was going to be done that quickly, but I hope Sarah did get a summer holiday, but anyway, it's good, welcome news, and I think yes, Councillor Forrester makes some really good points there about the schedule, and that we're notified when it's actually sealed, signed and sealed, and yes, as Councillor Turnbull and Councillor Watkins noted as well, I think that will be a real benefit then to the cabinet committee, cabinet committee, whatever it's called now, and what we have coming through to scrutiny is slightly different, and that will be again coming through to our November report. So if we're all happy on that, yes, okay, great, thank you. Right, well, thank you very much, Nikki, for being with us this evening, and we'll see you in November. All right, you're staying. Okay. So I'd now like to welcome Stacey Wells, who is Senior Programme and Performance Manager, and Stacey is going to give us an update on the Levelling Up Fund as a part of that quarterly report. Thank you very much, Stacey. Was it for cabinet or for scrutiny? Oh right, okay. Has anyone received a letter? What are we going to? Sure. All right, but Graham, do you want to speak about the Levelling Up Fund then? Yes, okay. Well, is everyone's, yeah, we're all fine. If you want to come and speak, I'm very sorry about that. I don't know where that's disappeared to then. We'll probably get it next week. Yes, you're very welcome. Thank you.
You okay now?
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, when I looked at the agenda, I wasn't going to speak, but when I walked through the Greyfriars Garden on Friday afternoon, I read your notice about the work that's being done there, and it says that when all the work's finished, the garden will be locked from dusk till dawn, which it used to be years ago, but then the council decided to save money by not locking some of the gates. And I use the Greyfriars Garden frequently. If I go to Tesco's or lovely cricket match, I come home through that way. But there's also another point. When the Tannery development was being built, I understand that part of the planning permission was that there would be provision for people to go along by the riverbank. And around the time of COVID, when we stopped having area member panels, that was when there'd been an argument because that gateway hadn't been opened, but it is open now. Now, for those of us that use the garden frequently, and for the people that live in the tannery development, if you're going to lock the gates, has anybody taken this into account? And if the members of the planning committee, they may like to look into the planning matter. If it was compulsory to have the gate open, can it legally be shut now? I can understand the reason why you want to shut it when the work's finished, but it's only going to affect a lot of us that like to use that way as a shortcut, particularly when St Peter's Street's blocked up with chairs, tables and advertising boards. Nice to come through the garden and have a look at the swans or the ducks, or a squirrel as it was this afternoon. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much. I handed the letter in on Monday afternoon.
Yes, apologies for that. It's now been found. So thank you very, very much for your comments this evening. And Stacey, maybe you can comment on that. And we have got members of the planning committee here, so maybe they can take that away and look at it as well. Stacey's just yeah.
Yeah, I know we did look at this last year, so I was just trying to find the correspondence of that. Actually, it was about 18 months ago. But obviously the planning consent for the development is outside the boundary of Greyfriars. So part of the decision to close is around the safety of Greyfriars and how dark it is. So part of the LUF programme, we've done a lot of research, basically trying to get lighting in there, and we just are unable to do that. So that's been one of the factors in the decision to lock the gates, because it's a nature monument site. You just can't dig, so you can't put the infrastructure in for lighting within the park. We've tested solar lighting, we've done all sorts to try and make that safe. So that was one of the reasons around the decision was made to lock the park, as well as the new play scheme. So obviously there's a higher risk of that being vandalised at night with that new scheme going in. So I would have to come back though. I know we have looked at planning and obviously check that we are able to lock the gate. But I'd have to go away and find that where it was actually written down.
Thank you, Stacey. Is that okay? We'll go away and have a look at that for you. And can we report that back at the next meeting then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much for raising that this evening. And I think there, as I say, there are a couple of members of planning committee on here as well, and they can look at that. So Stacey, then over to you then with the rest of your report. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Obviously, there's a lot of information in the report that was published, but it's a moving feast. So I'll just go through some of the things that have moved forward since the report was actually written. There's no change in terms of what the content that was in the report. I can confirm that the last two contracts are now out to tender. They're live on the Kent Business Portal. That's the landscaping of the castle grounds and the manufacture and installation of the interpretation totem. So those two contracts will be the last two that were awarded. And then all the funding will be committed, which is fantastic. The report touched on some of the sites that have been completed. We're now starting to see some of the works completed. Poor Priests was completed in June. We're just about to video a short film that we'll be able to share through our social media channels. where we'll be talking to the contractors that were involved in that, talking to the heritage consultants, because some of the kind of expertise and specialists that were involved in that, I think it would be really valuable to capture that and share that with the public. So that will be coming. You may have seen that St George's Lane is back open. So Deadline, the contractor, was on site all over the school summer holidays. They managed to finish the highway works on Sunday, and that's been reopened, ready for schools going back this week. They are just finishing round the rotunda and got some planting to finish, but those works have been on track. I think we have received some comments from the public that they wanted more doing in the actual bus station, and I think they're a little bit disappointed at that. But that was the kind of limits of the funding and the timescale, that we couldn't do more within that framework. But what we've tried to explain is that some of the works are a direct result of feedback we got through our disability advisory panel, in particular around making the pavement wider, levelling the surfaces around the trees, making it more pedestrian friendly, and with a particular focus on people with a limited mobility and those using pushchairs and wheelchairs. So it is an improvement to that area. And then the Castle Stone conservation work, that is also just about to be completed as well. The scaffolding's been up there for a long time, and that is a part of a two-phased approach to the castle site. So once the stonework is complete, then in the new year, that's when the landscaping will be able to happen. I think I explained previously, because of the bat on site, we're limited to when we can do works on that site. So we can't do anything between November and March, because that's the roosting and hibernation period. So there is a small bit of stonework conservation that will happen on the spiral staircase, that will time for when the walkway is put up on the castle. That will now happen after that hibernation period, April, May time. So there's a number of works in progress. I guess the most relevant one is right outside here, Westgate Square. Again, that is progressing, but that has been a really difficult site. Obviously, because of the disruption there, it has settled down. We've added more signage. We're going to be adding some more signage at the request of BID, putting some business as usual signs up. And we've recently made the decision that the one-way traffic flow will remain as is when the contractor switches to work on the other side. So the traffic will continue to, the traffic flow will be the same, but instead of the traffic going through the towers, it will go round the towers. People have got so used to the diversion as it is that as the contractor has been able to agree to that, then that diversion flow of traffic will remain. We have had some issues with utilities and the utility infrastructure underneath the surface, but we're working that through with the utilities company at the moment. And there was a coffin stone was discovered there, and that's going to become part of the paving to showcase that in the new paving as well. Dane John again, there's lots of activity on site. Some of the work that's been carried out so far includes the crown lifting to the trees and the shrub clearance. This central avenue has been excavated and the foundation for the new pathway services have been laid. The new planting beds have been laid out. The tree pits for the new trees have been prepared. The fountain's been repaired. The new paving has been laid around the bandstand. The low fencing around the Peace Garden has been removed and the paving has been cleaned. The historic lighting columns have been removed for repair or replacement. And the railings and gates have been painted. The old cafe building's now been removed as well, and the kiosk tenants have been relocated to Westgate Gardens, and that seems to be going well. Blakedown, who is the contractor, will be starting the resurfacing of the city wall and laying the wildflower turfs on the banks that go on the outside of the city wall along the ring road, starting in the autumn. So that will be the next step with that site. There have been some delays with starting the resurfacing of the city wall because of getting the Kent County Council permissions. So that has delayed the city wall element slightly. Longport, the works to the car park have been completed, so the car park is now reopened. But that is a two-phase site where the planting and the hedging will go in the autumn, and that is down to the weather conditions and the time of year. So it's better to do it that later in the year. The route works. Church Lane outside St Mildred's Church, that's the paving's been done on the highway, and Stour Street is progressing. And we've just talked about Greyfriars, the landscaping. The landscaping is starting there. The play area will happen later. That's subject to planning permission, but there was a meeting with the design and build team with local residents in advance of the planning permission. I think it was 2 weeks ago. It was either last week or the week before. And that was received positively. The works that are next due to start will be St George's Square. That again is a two-phase programme of work. The paving, the levelling of the paving will be done this side of Christmas, will be halted over the busy Christmas period. And then there is etching in the paving, which denotes where the old church was on that site. That will happen in January and February, along with the renovation of the clock tower. That's to make sure that that area is free during the Christmas period. And that's the theme, really. What we've been really careful around programming in the works over the Christmas period. So the St Mary Bredman Square, which is the area in front of the Nasons Courtyard, and Three Cities Gardens, they'll both be landscaped in the new year because they're centralised sites, so we don't want those works happening in there in the run-up to Christmas. Works will start on Solly's Orchard, the Tower of St Mary Magdalene and St Madigan's Garden. They're due to start this autumn, but should be finished before Christmas. And I think that's probably everything for the update.
Thank you very much, Stacey. Yes, Councillor Dixie.
Thanks. The Paul Priest Hospital, it looks brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I gather it was completed within budget, which was a very pleasant surprise. But when a council is going to be shown around, it was completed in June. I've been asking that there should be a councillor tour. You know, it's something we should be very proud of, and yet we're not. We're hiding under a bushel. Okay, that's one. The other one is not so good. The Westgate Towers project is an absolute disaster. I think we all know it's taking far, far longer than it should do. Most of the time, there are only two people working there, and sometimes there's nobody working there. I had a meeting with Peter some weeks ago about it and saying, can't you do shift working, overtime working, put more people in to reduce the time? Nothing's happened. Why we allow a project like this, which is causing so much disruption, to drag on and drag on? Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Dixie. Stacey.
There's absolutely no reason you can't have a tour of Paul Priest, so yeah, we can organise that. That's absolutely not a problem at all. Westgate Square, there have been reasons why work haven't been happening. So the first thing that happened, I think it was around April time when we first started, there was an issue with the BT infrastructure at the end of St Peter's Place that meant that our contract team just had to stop and couldn't do anything. Well, BT went in and sorted that infrastructure out. Had a similar issue at this end where the bridge is. We've been with the South East water infrastructure underneath that. So again, we've been waiting for them to come down, in conversation with them since February. They came down this week. So that has also delayed progress, and it has meant that our contractors haven't been able to progress, which is why you've seen these phases of not being, you know, the contractors not on site. I suppose you might ask, why didn't we know about some of that infrastructure before? It came up in the test pits. So the South East water issue came up in there about the depth of some of their infrastructure, we've got to involve them in terms of what they're happy with in those designs.
These are problems you get on all these sorts of contracts, and they should have been anticipated. You should have had contingency plans where you could move the work being done to other parts of the project, which wasn't affected by BT or the Water Board. It is just a shambles. It's an area I have experience in, and I'm embarrassed by it. And it's causing so much disruption. People in St Dunstan's who come to work in St Dunstan's from a Faversham direction are having to leave half an hour earlier every day to get in on time. 44 weeks.
I don't want to say too much on this because this is currently being discussed with Kent County Council this week. So we are hoping to be able to accelerate I'm not sure that there's any way to, I'd have to speak to the head of transport about that because he's leading the project. But as far as I know, we've done everything in the power. It's a big site, so you can't just stop and let the traffic go again while you halt, you know. Well, the contractor for Westgate Square that contractor is only engaged for Westgate Square. So that contractor is not.
It's a large area, which they're working on. They could be working on another part of the project.
I think that has been looked at, and it's not possible on that side.
Maybe one thing that would help then is if there were more, there were more regular updates. We get our weekly briefing, and obviously for ward councillors it's different as well. They should have much more briefing, but maybe even in that weekly briefing, if there are big delays to this, because it is something where residents and people coming into this area are justifiably irritated and annoyed. Maybe there's something where we could have more information, Stacey, on a regular basis to say this is delayed because of, or this is because, otherwise I think we only find out once we have a meeting here. Otherwise we don't know.
I've had no updates at all. I'm the ward councillor. I live within 100 yards of it.
Yes, so I think maybe, I know it's a bit late now, we're into 40, but it would help if maybe as we go through these final stages, as a ward councillor, they could be regularly updated when there are delays or work has stopped or work takes place again, so that they're able to keep people informed. Would that help, Councillor Dixie?
If you can reduce the time frame.
Well, I think if you know, then you've got the information to be able to go back to officers and see if they can speed things up.
who else? I had a session with Peter. Nothing's happened.
Well, anyway, hopefully Stacey, you'll be able to take this back. Thank you, Councillor Dixie. Councillor
Thank you, Chair. I recall a resident coming and speaking to council about the works at Solly's Orchard. They were expressing concern about those works. I can't entirely remember what the issue was. I think it's something to do with plans to tarmac over parts of the... I'm not entirely sure. Somebody else may know. And I wondered whether that this resident coming to speak to council had any impact on the planned works there. Thanks.
Well, I think we've had a number of on-site meetings with a lot of the local residents throughout the whole design process, from the original concept design through to when the final designs were agreed. So that engagement has happened throughout. So and it has changed the design. It has influenced the design throughout that process. But we've had differing opinions. So there is likely to be, I expect, some residents that are not happy with everything, where there'll be some residents that do prefer the design. So, but yeah, the designs were certainly changed, taken into consideration what the local feedback was.
Come to Councillor Butcher, but I think Councillor Dixie just wants to make a comment on that.
Solly's Orchard, yes. She presented a petition with over 1,500 signatures on it. The St. Peter's residents are universally have huge reservations about the plan. There was some modifications made, but not enough. I was told the design now is finalised, and they're going to ignore these 1,500 people who signed this petition.
Thank you, Councillor Dixie. So it's Councillor Butcher, but thank you for your patience.
No problem. I received an email, sorry, I couldn't say. Received an email today, and it says start of works notification for St. Peter's Road, Canterbury. And they're going to start on the 29th of September 2025. But when I opened the attachment, it said St. Peter's Road, Whitstable. So...
How peculiar.
I don't know what, because I'm presuming it's St. Peter's Road, Canterbury, but I can show you the email, and I picked it up because I thought, well, is it Canterbury or, and the letter clearly states St. Peter's Road, Whitstable, footway maintenance in your area. So I'll show you it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor
There may
Butcher.
well be some works there as well. I can check.
Yes, we'll have a look at that. Yeah.
Certainly needs clarifying because it is start of works notification, and if other people get conflicting messages, it will be not good for our council. Well, I think it's KCC, so.
Well,
maybe,
yes, but it will reflect. It will reflect on us as part of the LUF. So yes, it will cause confusion. So thank you very much for raising that, and Stacey will look into that. And Councillor Watkins.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, thank you for the report. And yes, lots of comments made about the sort of building out of the project, and it's good to see the progress is being made. I was just going to turn my attention to the second stage, I guess, which is, I guess, maintaining this great new asset that we create for our city. I don't know if you'll remember, but I think it was last year we had a discussion when this report came up then, just about what would follow in terms of maintenance. And returning to the theme of the evening for me, we did talk about how Kanenko and KCC, we'd need to have agreements with them for looking after the plants, looking after the new equipment and all of that good stuff. And actually it was one of the sort of number one bits of feedback we got from residents when we did public consultations on the project early on. That, you know, most of the public, of course, are very excited about this project for Canterbury, but some people did say, well, we've got to make sure that we've got good plans to keep everything looking good, both you know, the physical structures and the natural elements. So I wanted to ask you, yeah, many months have passed since we discussed that. Have we got agreements in place for who's going to do the maintenance, and are we sort of reassured that that's going to be well looked after?
It's still a work in progress for a couple of reasons. So we've identified all the things that will need maintaining. So there's an offsetting. So things like wayfinding, we're taking some of the old wayfinding out, we're putting new wayfinding in, but there will be a little bit more wayfinding than there was. So we have identified who those asset owners will be within the council, whose responsibility, whose budget it will come out from for cleansing, maintaining. Some of that is on estimates. So for things like the wayfinding and the interpretation totems, for example, we've estimated the cost because we haven't got that information back from the manufacturer. I mentioned the interpretation panels are out to tender now. So as part of those contracts, we will have the maintenance program, recommended maintenance program for every item. So whether that is the signposting or whether that is the planting schemes that are going in, or the play scheme, or whatever it is. So we've got the lists of all those assets, whatever they might be. They have been shared and identified with the service that will be responsible for maintaining them. Some of them we've got more fixed costs because we do it already. Some of it we don't, and they are based on estimates. And so the heads of services have been able to include that in the conversations they're having now for budget setting for next year and thereafter.
Clearly, Stacey, you're very on top of the issue and made some good progress. And I guess the point I'd leave with would just be for the two external providers, because you talked about the internal teams, and quite right too. They will pick up a lot of it, our colleagues. But for the two external providers, KCC and Kanenko, obviously we want, we need agreements with them because they are external. Can't quite assume that we will be in a unitary quite as quickly as the government might think. So KCC remains an external body, and we need an agreement with them. And I'll just say I'm very happy to see any contract you come to with Kanenko on the company's advisory committee, as you might have noticed this evening.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Stacey, if everyone's okay with that. So I think Stacey's picked up all the points raised by Councillor Butcher, Councillor Dixie and Councillor Turnbull. And I hope we'll be able to come back on all of those to the councillors and also to this committee. So are we okay just to note that report? Yep. Lovely, great. Well, thank you very much, Stacey, for being here this evening. And then our final report, item 9 this evening, is Marie's going to give us an update on the topic review and timetable that's coming up. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you, Chair. So it's been over 12 months now since we started the new format for the committee. We've gone through a number of themes as part of the topics. The report that you've got in front of you proposes a new timetable and programme for next year. Just important to note that some of the dates have changed on the programme. And that's because we've shifted things around to accommodate the annual corporate plan performance at your next meeting in November. You'll also see that the workforce reports coming in November and Park and Ride 6 monthly monitoring. you've got proposals for March, June. We're proposing to also continue with the separate community safety partnership meeting because that worked really well this year. Considering the amount of items that you have on your agenda, that separate meeting was a good opportunity to have debate and scrutiny over what's being delivered. September, again, we've got the finance, and then November, you'll note that the housing and contract management has been moved to the November meeting. So just a sort of quick reminder that basically Scrutiny Committee is acting as a critical friend to Cabinet and holding Cabinet to account for the delivery of its policies. And this also includes financial and performance monitoring of services. So the rolling timetable is being presented tonight for debate. You've got a number of options if you want to continue with what's been proposed. We can implement that, or if you want to amend any of the recommended inclusion of themes in that programme, again, we can look to vary it.
Yes, Councillor Dupe.
I just wanted to say thank you. And we can avoid horrendous amounts of reading before a meeting, and I want to support option 1. Really appreciate having more meetings.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Dupe. Yeah, I think, I know the committee is quite different to a year ago anyway. We've got a lot of new people on it, so not very many of us are still here from a year ago, but I hope, and I think it's worked well, because the change in the corporate plan obviously made it a little bit different in how we need to approach scrutiny. I think we obviously have to have the staples like projects and performance and the outturn report that we've had today. So those, and the finance projects and performance. So, you know, those are staples of scrutiny. But then in addition to those, it does give us an opportunity to look at areas of environment, transport, and the housing and housing and Kanenko, some of the Kanenko stuff that's not going to the Cabinet Committee. But what I just wanted, I'll come to you in a minute, Councillor Forrest, but what I just want to say to everyone is that these are the themes, but we have flexibility within those themes. So for instance, March for Environment, at the moment we've put down water because obviously the motion went through on South East Water, so that needs to go in somewhere, and it sort of seems to make sense because we've got sewage and the rivers and chalk streams and lots of various things, so probably to focus more on water than biodiversity this time. But within the other ones, we have got flexibility within those themes, so they're not rigid. So we can discuss that, and I'm quite happy for any member to discuss that with me as well. So Councillor Forrester.
Thank you, and thank you for putting this together. I like the themes, and as a new member of the committee, I found that a very helpful way in. My only thought was reflecting on our recent meeting on housing and contract management, and that those are two quite weighty topics in their own right, and it turned into a mammoth meeting, and perhaps housing got slightly sidelined due to the Kanenko discussions. Hopefully that won't be the case going forward because of the contract position, but I just wonder if that's something we can keep under review, because housing is obviously very important and I wouldn't want it to be sidelined by another issue. However important that is, they should both be heard. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a good point. And I think one of the ways we can do that is we can always move the agenda around so that housing comes earlier in the evening than maybe the other contracts. So it has a greater focus if we think that's the bigger area to focus on for that meeting. Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, just to say, I as a previous member of the committee as well, I do like this way of doing things. I found it interesting and more coherent than what we had before, where it was all, I found it quite confusing. So I just want to say thank you. And yeah, I think this looks good. And I agree with Councillor Forrester over there that we don't want to we want to keep it as the meetings can get quite weighty. I think if we have more than one sort of big thing on there. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I agree. I think previously the meetings were going on far too long. This evening we'll be finished by 9 o'clock, which is 2 hours that we've been focused, rather than, I think we had 3.5 hour meetings before, which was just too much to take in on such meaty topics. So yeah, no, that's good. So if I think we just general assent, are we?
I'll do it on a show of hands.
Oh, do you do it? Yeah, just we're all,
If no
yeah,
one's against it,
we're
we'll
all
do a show
happy
of
with
hands.
this. Yes. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Right. Okay. So we'll move ahead with the projects and performance, and we will be seeing quite a lot of those KPIs coming then in November. Pippa.
I was just to say, did that include Dan? He didn't indicate.
Yes, Dan, are you happy with that? You didn't. Yeah. Yeah. We all are. Okay. So, on that note, I'd like to thank our officers attending tonight, Marie, Nikki, Stacey and Cheryl, who has just left earlier, and also our public speaker, Graham, for his asking those questions on LUF. Our next meeting is November 26th at 7 p.m. That's a Wednesday. We've got no other urgent business and we don't need to exclude anybody. So that's it. So thank you all very, very much, and see you